Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
Powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. This is the Morning Sports Desk. I'm CJ Baumgartner. Corey Tackman over there. In the middle is our guy Zeke. He's been our cross-country expert, our cross-country correspondent.
That's a better word. Correspondent's a much better word than expert.
Correspondent sounds a lot better. There you go. In the words of the man himself. Before we get going, Corey, we got to talk a little bit about Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
Yeah, we're halfway through the month now, and it's a good time to remind you that Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade are putting together the ultimate prize giveaway. You could win a Nintendo Switch 2 and a 50-inch TV, and you might already be entered. If you have a FunZone Rewards account, you are officially already in. You are automatically entered in to the ultimate prize giveaway. If you're not a FunZone Rewards member yet, just scan the QR code. If you're watching the Morning Sports Desk on YouTube, it's right there. It'll be really easy. Of course, you got to head to the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade anyway, so scan the code while you're there. Find it on Facebook. Scan the code, and you need to do so by the end of the month. Join by September 30th for your automatic entry into the ultimate prize giveaway. Win a Nintendo Switch 2 and a 50-inch TV from Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
All right, Zeke, our cross-country correspondent. That was always a thing. When I worked in TV, there was like, certain stories just ended up going to one particular person. There was this dude who grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and he was just the fishing correspondent because the first week he got there, he just got assigned like 3 fishing stories. So then the joke was anytime there was a fishing story, they just gave it to him, even though the man had like barely ever fished in his life. But it was like, here. You're our fishing correspondent. So I tried like heck to not get the same stories ever because I didn't want to get labeled as an anything correspondent because knowing my luck, it was going to be something completely ridiculous. So Zeke, you get something that's very serious and not ridiculous at all. Cross country, you're a cross country correspondent. What do we got? What's going on? What do we need to know about?
Yeah, cross country, very serious here in West Central Minnesota. 2 big meets we're keeping our eye on today, then a big one coming up on Saturday. A lot of teams in Bagley today, a lot of teams in Melrose. We'll start with the lineup for the Bagley Twin Pines cross country meet today. Ada Borup West, Bagley Foston, Barnesville is going to be up there. Bemidji is going to be there. Cass Lake Bena, Clearbrook, John Vic, DGF, Fertile Beltrami, the Frazee Hornets are running today. Lake of the Woods, Lake Park, Audubon, Nevis, Northern Freeze, Park Rapids, Pelican Rapids, Parker's Prairie, Red Lake County, Rose O'Thief, Trek North, United North Central, Wool Road, and West Marshall all running in Bagley today. I did get a story up on WDCradio.com. United North Central ran in Sioux Falls last Saturday, a giant meet of like 15 to 20 teams from Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, North and South Dakota. The girls took 13th in the 20-team field. The boys took 28th, so good showing there. In Melrose today, this should be a good one between Wadena Deer Creek and Sauk Center, kind of the top 2 teams in Section 6A. We'll see what improvements WDC has made to kind of close the gap between Sauk Center and the Wolverines, because every meet I've seen that the Main Streeters have ran in this season, the boys have just kicked some serious butt. Benson's going to be there. Bertha Hewitt is going to be there. I saw that Coach Miller got a 4th boy out for cross country, so they're still building the numbers there to get a full team. We'll see if he runs his 8th graders in Melrose today. We've got Brandon Evansville, Breckenridge, Litchfield, Long Prairie Gray Eagle, the Minnewaska area Lakers going to be there today. That girls team, like I mentioned, with Sauk Center in 6A, the girls team is that good in 6A too. It'll be interesting to see Minnewaska versus WDC in the girls side. Morris, New London Spicer, Painesville, like I mentioned, Sauk Center going to be there, WDC going to be there, and West Central area running in Melrose this afternoon too. That one starts at 5, I believe. No, 4:30 girls start for Bagley, 4:00 girls start in Melrose.
A lot of stuff going on, and like you said, getting to compete in Sioux Falls, that's not always is that invite only? Is that something that you got to qualify for? Did they just say like, hey, we'll drive down to Sioux Falls? How does that work typically?
I'm not sure how that one works. I'll have to reach out to the UNC coaches, but I know that it's kind of a giant preview meet for I think their state meet in South Dakota, and so it's just whoever wants to show up. Winona Cotter was there, and just a bunch of random schools making their way to Sioux Falls. One other meet I want to touch on real quick is this weekend is the annual Roy Griak race at Les Bolstad Golf Course on the campus of the University of Minnesota. And one of the weird things going on with the Les Bolstad Golf Course is that the U of M is in the process of selling it. And so this could maybe be the last Roy Griak meet at the Les Bolstad course, and an even bigger implication and bigger worry for high school cross country fans is the Les Bolstad course is also where they're holding the state cross country meet now. So a lot of teams that are running in the high school side of the Roy Griak this weekend, kind of a state preview meet, if you will. So some of the top runners in the state can kind of get a feel for that course. But then what happens after that? There's an article in the Star Tribune this morning about kind of the question marks surrounding where the state high school meet is going to move. Is it going to move back to St. Olaf? Is it going to move somewhere else? What if the deal, the sale of the Griak land to the city of Falcon Heights, what if that falls through? Will we see the Griak course open again next year, even though the U of M has said we're not going to reopen the golf course next year? Maybe they still run the meet there. Nobody knows. It's the big question mark in high school cross country right now.
Interesting. A lot of things to unfold. And like you said, when it's a deal between a major university and a city, that certainly feels like there's just so much red tape and hoops to jump through that it's going to take a while for that to actually materialize no matter what happens. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Zeke, on a gut feeling, what do you think is going to happen? Like, where do you think that it just goes back to St. Olaf? Do you think that they kind of travel it around? What do you think just kind of on a gut level?
I hope they move it north. That'd be awesome. If we didn't have to drive all the way to St. Olaf to see our teams run. I know they moved the state track meet to St. Michael Albertville a couple years ago, and that's been awesome, specifically for the northern teams that don't have to drive all the way down, South Metro, even southern Minnesota sometimes. So I think find a spot kind of in the middle. Everyone goes down there for state everything, basketball, hockey, football. Put a couple things closer to the St. Cloud area maybe, and go for there. Maybe St. Cloud State wants to host state cross country. That'd be a good middle point.
A lot of fascinating stuff. Zeke, where can people check your workout? I know you got to get out of here. Just tell us where we can find all the great cross country work you're cutting up and where people can follow the results of these races you previewed this morning. Yeah,
we'll have results, times, all that kind of fun stuff online, WDenaRadio.com. You can also follow Sports Cow on Facebook to get updates there too.
Zeke, our cross-country correspondent, taking some time with us on the morning sports desk. Zeke, appreciate having you on again. We'll let you slip out of here. Have a good one.
Sounds good. Go Twins.
They beat the Yankees. I'll take
it. Sure did.
It's a lost season, but that's not lost on us. All right, there's your Twins talk today. Corey, we got a lot to talk about in terms of our local volleyball stuff. Zeke, by the way, does a great job of that cross-country stuff. Go give him a follow. I know there's a lot of cross-country fans across the area who will talk all the time. They're like, hey, we'd love, stuff on the radio. We'd love this. We'd love more coverage. And obviously, understandable, at least so, Zeke is doing all that great work. So follow his stuff on Sports Cow on Facebook or WDenaRadio.com. He covered a few races for us earlier in the season. Believe there's one more coming up that he's going to talk about. So a lot of great stuff. You can find it on Sports Cow on Facebook or WDenaRadio.com. Moo. So volleyball tonight, we got a simulcast on 98.5 FM, AM 1430 KNSP The Fan, as well as the Superstation K106. That's 105.9 FM, streaming online at WDenaRadio.com or the Superstation K106 mobile app. It's the Highway 10 rivalry in volleyball. The Wadena Deer Creek Wolverines are going to Staples-Motley for the first time ever to the Nest to take on the Cardinals. It's always a good one when these two teams get to play each other, Corey. It's been a rivalry just in terms of Wadena and Staples that has probably been the longest enduring, just because both those towns, kind of have always stayed roughly similar in size, or school sizes have been roughly the same. They've been in sections together. They've not been in sections together. They've been in a conference together when they were both in the mid-state. There's just a good natural rivalry between these schools, and it's fun to see it come out in these games.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I had somebody from Staples tell me one time if I broke down in Bluffton, I'd walk to Verndale to get some help. So yeah, it's a real true, like old school rivalry of two communities that like to really beat up on the other one if at all possible. And it'll be cool to be in the nest for that one here tonight. I know for you to see. I saw Staples-Motley last week, CJ, they were at the Yellow Jackets, and it's been a bit of a slow go, a bit of a slow start for a Cardinal volleyball. They graduated like a good slew of players. They've got some nice returners, but it's trying to find that right mesh, that right rotation, that right the right person to step into leadership roles. There's all of those when you turn over from one year to the next. And there's clearly some talent there. It's young. It's young talent. So learning the speed, right? Like you get that in high school sports. There's just a little turnover, and the Cardinals right now in the early going anyway, I know are going through that. I've just seen them more recently than you, so wanted to keep you kind of updated. You've seen the Wolverines more recent. Are they kind of swinging in the right direction, or where are they at?
Starting to get a little bit into form, Corey. They started the year 2-2 with losses to Perham and Dilworth, Glendon, Felton. They got wins over East Grand and Pillager. Then they went to a tournament in Sauk Rapids Rice. They split those matches, winning against Osagus and Brainerd, losing to Foley and St. Cloud Cathedral. And then since then, they've won their last two games. They had last week, they got a win against Park Rapids area. They also got a win against Sabika. Both of those going in straight sets. Not only is Wadena Deer Creek 2-2 in Section 8 AA volleyball, they're also 2-0 in the Park Region Conference. They're 3-1 on the road, 2-2 in neutral site games, 1-1 on their home floor. For the Wolverines, yeah, it feels like they're starting to come into form a little bit. It really was that Sauk Rapids Rice tournament. Talking with Coach Courtney Thunberg last week before their match against Park Rapids area, and she said, we just tried to tinker with some things, try and find that rotation like we talked about last week, Corey, on the show, and like you just mentioned a little bit a few seconds ago. This is the part of the season now. Coaches have gone through that. You get through the first couple weeks of practice. You have all summer. You kind of have like a rough idea of what your team is going to look like. And then you go out and play games against other teams. And then it's like, okay, where do we need to make a change? How do we need to do whatever to get the most out of our team? And now this is the part of the season where you're going to see that change happen for probably the rest of September. And then once the calendar turns to October, then everybody's like, all right, we got to hunker down and get into our lineups, and how do we want to look when playoffs come around? So this is the tinkering part of the season. The Wolverines tinkered with their lineup a little bit, getting a few more girls out onto the floor, just trying to see who can make the most of some opportunities. And again, last week against Park Rapids area, the Wolverine offense was really balanced. Obviously, Peyton Gravel is a force to be stopped, but every team knows that you need to stop Peyton Gravel. Kennedy Ness had a really nice game. So did Celia Renio, and she's a sophomore on this team who's had a really nice night on Tuesday evening. And so it's just a way of like, you get that one extra hitter in your team, Corey, that really kind of like, all right, that's a third person on the floor. That means when Peyton comes off the floor, hey, like you can't just like, oh, this is our time to strike. There's also another girl coming in who you got to look out for as somebody that can hit. So that offense really got going in that match, and I think that's kind of where Wadena Deer Creek feels they are strongest, is they have just a good balanced attack of hitters. And, you mix in a Jada Dykoff here and then. I know there's a couple other hitters on that team that can, knock down a few kills as well. So they feel like they're a balanced team. When they can get that balance going, that's really been the key for them. Obviously, still some, still the first half of the season, with a new setter, there's just a little bit of trying to figure out communication and timing and things like that. So that'll be kind of my thing to watch for the Wolverines, is can they get that timing down? Can they figure out what they need to do in that aspect? It should be a good one. It is a 7 o'clock pregame, 7:15 first serve on the Superstation K106 105.9 FM, streaming online at WadenaRadio.com, Superstation K106 mobile app, and like every Staples-Motley volleyball game has been all season long, on 98.5 FM and AM 1430 KNSP, The Fan. We're going to simulcast it so you can listen on both stations. And by the way, I know we mentioned Wadena Deer Creek's record a moment ago. For Staples-Motley, they're 4-9. They are 0-1 in the Heart of Lakes Conference, 1-4 on the road. They're 0-1 at home. This is just their second home game at the Nest. They're 3-4 on the season. And this is the first time Wadena Deer Creek gets to go to the Nest. And I know, Corey, you got to cover their first home game of the season. Just talk about what environment that's like for volleyball and what you kind of expect the gym to be like with these two communities.
Yeah, no, man, it's a new gym and a new experience, and it's this only, like you said, it's only the second time in there. Like the height videos are sweet, and the scoreboard is sweet, and the setting is awesome with banners and signage and you know the inspiration and like, you know, teamwork and dream work, and you know, it's just like, it's cool, man. It's cool in there, and it's a neat atmosphere, and the Cardinals fans are always like the Cardinal student section is like second to none, probably. Like I mean,
some energy.
That always. No one, how about this as an example? No students ever go to baseball or softball games, right? Like, just generally speaking.
There's not like a student section for those. No.
Every softball game I've done in Staples, they've had a student section of 30 kids. Like, they just show up and support their friends, and will do the exact same thing. And when you include a rivalry night like tonight is, yeah, it should be pretty sweet in there.
I believe it's homecoming week for Staples-Motley too. So just a little extra energy in the building as well.
No doubt.
It should be pretty fun. You can find the full broadcast schedule online at WDenaRadio.com or the Superstation K106 mobile app, or again, when you follow Sports Cow on Facebook.
Moo.
Corey, by the way, I will say, I was talking with our football color commentator, Dirk Schultz, and we were in break one time, and he said, by the way, I got to give props to Corey. His moo is great, referencing the morning sports desk, or Sports Cow, excuse me, promo we air on the Superstation K106. He was very impressed.
Lots of practice. You grow up. I didn't grow up on the farm, but I've had friends my whole life. I've been around cows my whole life. I know what I'm doing.
Moo. All right. Let's talk.
So if I know Dirk, he meant that as smart assery as possible. So listen, Dirk.
What? He could have been genuinely impressed. All right, Corey. JJ McCarthy gets a bomb dropped on us yesterday that he had a high ankle sprain and will be out for 2 to 4 weeks, it's sounding like. Kevin O'Connell came right out in his Monday afternoon presser and said, we are getting Carson Wentz ready to play to start against the Cincinnati Bengals. So Jim Nantz and Tony Romo circled this game on the calendar. Joe Burrow versus JJ McCarthy, US Bank Stadium. And instead we're getting Carson Wentz versus Jake Browning.
Yeah, no, hallelujah. I think the last I saw is the Vikings are at 9 of their 22 starters at this very instant.
Right.
Out for Sunday's game. Half the starters are out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. This is the thing with the Vikings, by the way. And again, this is not I'm not trying to second guess and say that everything was wrong. I'm just going to say, this was the thing when you add a bunch of veteran players, and the thing that the Vikings have done in the past is take chances on guys who have a little bit of injury concern because they feel like their medical staff's good. And they also just feel like it's, again, Kwesi being the stock trader guy, depreciated assets. Hey, this guy's had a little bit of an injury history. We feel like we can get a little bit of a deal on him, save a little bit on the cap, use it on other play, yada, yada, yada. And that's one thing where when it works when you have all these guys healthy and you have them on good contracts. It's awesome. The only downside is when everybody gets hurt at once, it really isn't good. But the other thing is, this is football. You could sign the healthiest players imaginable and they'll still get hurt because this is just a violent game. So it's a little bit of this and that. But mainly the main focus is on McCarthy now. And now that he's out, this really, Corey, just is the season has just had a weird vibe. The first week was a weird vibe up until the fourth quarter, and then they won, so you kind of forgot about it. And then last week was just a weird vibe. And now you have your starting quarterback who's out, and this is a very important stretch because the Vikings are going to play the Bengals. They're going to play in London or in Ireland. One of the two. You play the Steelers, Browns, or Browns, Steelers, doesn't matter. And then you get a bye week, and then it's the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles at home. And, if JJ McCarthy, let's say, is out the next 4 weeks, he basically would be able to come back against the Eagles because, the next 3 games, bye week, theoretically, he could come back post-bye. But looking at the schedule here and looking at this stuff, do we call the season dead, or is this or what are we doing here? Because if the Vikings struggle in this, they're like 3-4 with McCarthy coming back, and things are kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a person ever who I just don't jump to conclusions like that, because football is too weird. Just anyway, football's weird on its own. And then you consider what the Vikings situation is, and let's just assume nothing is weird happening right now, right? You're still talking about a team that was set up to mostly be successful pending a rookie quarterback who has played 0 professional snaps in his career, give or take. Right? So the difference of who you're going to and what you're going to get out of JJ McCarthy between a week 2 game and let's say a week 14 game it's very different. You're talking about, hopefully anyway, a very different guy by the end of the year. And to probably even be more realistic about it, the guy you have between week 2 of his effective rookie season and week 2 of his second season is going to be a different guy. So all of those things are to say, it's just hard to know where the Vikings are going to be by the end of it all. I think it still is true, CJ, that the team is supposed to be good and will be good. And if they're healthy, they have all the right pieces in place, right? That doesn't change. But now we include the health conversation into all of this. And that does make it dicey. So is it done? Do we cash it in? I'm not that kind of person. That's not the way I think. I don't mean this in coach speak, but I just like to watch every week. I'm a 1 week at a time kind of fan, because whatever. But the interesting thing will come to be is what if Carson Wentz does Sam Darnold things?
I was going to ask that question. What if Carson Wentz comes in and, there's some pretty, if you think about it, the next 3 weeks are kind of some open season a little bit. The Bengals are beat up and their defense isn't very good, and Joe Burrow is out of that lineup. Okay, well, Carson Wentz, again, he's barely been on this team for a month, so it's not like he's been the backup all summer, but Carson Wentz can come in, run the operation. He can get the ball to Justin Jefferson at the very least and let him do Justin Jefferson things, and you win that game, let's say. Okay, you go overseas, you play the Steelers. Well, Aaron Rodgers has not looked the best the first couple weeks. The Steelers have been a little weird. Let's say you find a way to win that game ugly, and then you play the Browns, and you don't play bad against them. Let's say that there's a case where the Vikings do go 3-0 in the games where Carson Wentz plays, and let's say McCarthy is healthy. Now all of a sudden the Vikings are 4-1 coming into this bye week. Do you at that point? That's the question. If the team is rolling, and not to say that McCarthy is benched forever, but it's to say when we talk about they brought in veteran players and you have veteran guys on the team, do you say, all right, well, we're 4-1, let's give it back to the rookie so he can figure it out? But you also don't want to bench McCarthy either, because he needs reps. He's had enough mental reps. He's had enough, all this stuff. He needs to just get in the game and figure it out. This is why last year, him being hurt, we talk about it being a good thing, and it was in a way of the Vikings just to let McCarthy sit and develop and whatever, but he was also hurt, so he couldn't be the scout team quarterback. He couldn't develop behind the scenes and do all this stuff. He was rehabbing, and so he missed that time to be able to kind of get used to everything on the physical side, and that appears to be the biggest issue with McCarthy's. He just needs to figure out rhythm and timing and things like that he didn't get last year. It almost is better long-term in a way if Carson Wentz goes 2-2 and the Vikings are 3-3, and it's all right, well, throw McCarthy back in there and let's figure this thing out. But if the Vikings, the biggest thing would be if he's still not ready and Carson Wentz leads the Vikings to a victory against the Eagles at home and you're 4-2, then it'd be, again, it's a lot of these questions. So it'll be interesting. What if Carson Wentz leads the Vikings to, a 2-1 a 3-0, a 3-1 stretch. Now all of a sudden you got to make some decisions for the team.
So I think it really depends on what your definition of good is. Or like, for instance, you kept using the word lead. If Carson Wentz leads your team to 3 straight victories, and then, by the way, after the bye week,
it's brutal.
Philadelphia at the Chargers, at Detroit, Baltimore. Brutal. That's a brutal month after the bye week. But yes, if he leads the team, literally, not he's the quarterback of a team.
So not just he runs the operation.
Big deal. It's JJ McCarthy's job. If he's winning games for you, if he's doing if he plays like Sam Darnold did for 17 games, 16 games last year, then yeah, maybe you have to very seriously consider something like that. But it needs to be, he needs to take the job. This can't. So your definition of good
happens to win the games he started.
If they go 3-1 in their next 4, and the team has 2 fumble recoveries and a pick 6, you know what I mean? Like Riker just goes ballistic and kicks 6 field goals. You know, like Wentz does good
on pace.
Wentz does good enough to get him to the 33-yard line to kick field goals or whatever. Like, that's not leading. That's not carrying. That's not moving the team forward. That's not moving the needle.
If he's just game managing,
it's JJ's job. It is JJ's job until Wentz steals it from him. So that's the answer. And it is a subjective outcome. You're not going to, there's no like stat you can say. You can't pin it on wins and losses. You can't, we'll know the week of Philadelphia whose job it is, basically.
Right. And this is the other thing too, right? Is like Carson Wentz, like he's a fine backup. And that's the thing, fine backup. I think people overestimate how good backup quarterbacks are. Nick Mullins is a fine backup, and no Vikings fan was clamoring for the Vikings to keep Nick Mullins. But Mullins is a fine backup.
There's a reason he's been a backup for the last half decade plus.
Right. He makes enough plays and can run an operation to where you go, all right, like he can get the ball to receivers, but he'll make about 4 throws a game where you go, oh yeah, no. Like those just can't happen.
Yeah, so that's funny. I was talking with somebody this morning about that. Like JJ McCarthy is going to throw it to the other team because he's a little slow yet at assessing what's happening. Carson Wentz has been in the league for forever and should understand what's happening and is going to throw it to the other team. That is the difference. I will tell you, there's
a lot of Sam Darnold in him. Sam Darnold's just a little bit better, like thrower of the football, whereas Wentz pre-ACL was a better athlete.
I think that's fair. I tell you what, though, if you want to commit a crime, you should do it in Mandan on Sunday. There's gonna be a lot of people from. Oh yeah, we came clear from Mandan to Minneapolis. We're gonna watch Carson play.
Oh yeah. I love to come down from Mandan. I watched all the Bison games.
Yeah, if there's a crime to commit, it's gonna be in Mandan on Sunday.
Because nobody will be in town. Or if they are, they're inside their houses going ballistic or yelling at the TV. So that'll be an interesting factor in how Carson Wentz plays. I think here's the thing, because Carson Wentz, we all remember him, like he's so far away from his MVP type 2017 season where if he stayed healthy, would have been the MVP of the league.
Would have absolutely been the MVP that year.
Right. And like, he's able to make some throws. And I think in Indianapolis, they went 8-9, and everybody remembers that they lost to the Urban Meyer Jaguars on the last game of the season. And that's kind of what booted him out. And he was not a great starting quarterback in Washington, but that was like Dan Snyder, Washington team that was really bad and whatever. So he gets a little bit of a mulligan. He was a backup for Kansas City. He was a backup for McVay. So he's kind of spent some time on good teams and things like that. This is now you get to the point of he's a veteran quarterback. So if he can just properly assess at the line what needs to happen and just lobs it up to Jefferson, it worked for Darnold. And again, Darnold's like, I think people underestimate how good of a thrower of the football Darnold is. Like that's what made him a number 3 overall draft pick, is just how good of an arm talent he is. But I think overall we can see it in our heads working a little bit, right? Or are we being too delusional?
It depends. Are you trying to talk yourself into it actually working, or do you mean working a little bit?
Working a little bit. Like I'm not going to say that like he's going to go on a Case Keenum run where all of a sudden he just keeps winning games, but can he he could probably go 3-1 in a 4-game stretch?
Oh, it's the hard thing is that I don't think this is actually an entirely fair conversation, because we're talking about they have 9 of their 22 starters out with injury right now. Like, it just might not matter. It just, if he's got a backup,
if you got the third string left tackle out there and he gets beat off the snap by Trey Hendrickson.
And I know the Vikings haven't given up a ton of points, but their defense hasn't been good either.
They've been giving up a lot of yards.
A lot. So, this is not I know we're focusing this conversation on a JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz quarterback. Can these guys do it? Can they not do it? There's a lot of other guys who got to play football on this team who are not doing it right now and are not allowing, it's going to take something superhuman from a healthy JJ McCarthy or a good Carson Wentz. And let's be honest, it's been a decade since we've seen a Carson Wentz go superhuman, and we don't know if JJ McCarthy has that in him. We're still learning these things. So yes, in theory, in a vacuum, can Carson Wentz steady the ship amongst rocky shores? Sure. But this ship might have run aground right now with some of its injuries. It might not matter.
This is a fascinating one. Last question. We'll end the show on this. If Carson Wentz started in place of JJ McCarthy, do the Vikings win against the Falcons on Sunday?
No.
They
what the offensive line was? He gave up 6 sacks in the first half.
There would have at least been I think the thing is I think he would have at least gotten the football out a little quicker, and I think he could have gotten them at least a touchdown.
I don't know.
I think he could have gotten 1 touchdown drive.
I don't know. He was being hit all the time.
He was.
Not on late decisions either. He wasn't getting hit on slow decision making. That's the thing. If he was getting hit on slow decision making, then yes, I probably agree with you. He was getting, and his back foot has been sacked. Okay, good.
Right. Well, and I agree with you. I think a lot of McCarthy's issues do boil down to the line speed up, and there was a lot of pressure. He also did leave a good amount of throws out there too that could have been made.
I'm not saying that's not the case. I just don't.
That's where I feel like Carson could at least have hit Jefferson on that 10-yard thing where he turfed it to him, or that deep ball to Naylor. He would have at least mooned it up a little bit more for Naylor to run into or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But you're talking about 3 plays and a team that lost by 3 scores and did score a touchdown. So what's the difference? Is that really being a difference maker?
Are we just shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic? Probably.
Correct.
We're probably doing that, which means we got to wrap up. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Corey Tackman. Tomorrow we got more morning sports desk coverage. Join us then.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.